After attending the local VFW post in Dana Point for many weeks, I sent this email to the VFW office and commander asking about having a conversation around civil rights and treatment of veterans. The VFW commander in Dana Point, Rick Dregge, seemed open to it and emailed me back setting up a time to chat by phone. But instead of calling me the next morning, he called me an hour later and had some really demeaning and humiliating things to say about not just my email and what he read into it, but also things that were said on the phone call. So after the phone call, I was really crestfallen because I was really looking forward to connecting with other vets in the area. My wife, who is a wonderful person, had this to say to the VFW commander after this phone call. And this email, I was led to believe, led to the well check that you can see going on in the background. On November 30th, deputies showed up at 11:47, made this report, and began their well check.
Where's it? Martin, right?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Sheriff's Department.
Hey, Martin, this is Deputy Silva. How you doing? How you doing today, sir?
Fine.
I'm Deputy Silva with the Sheriff's Department. This is my partner, Deputy Kruger, and our other partner here, Topher.
How's it going?
We didn't get a call on you or anything like that. You're not in trouble. We're just here to follow up.
On a letter, I guess, that was sent, an email that was sent to the VFW?
Probably.
Yeah, by your wife, Laura?
Sure.
Laura had said that there was some concerns, I guess she addressed to the VFW regarding a recent contact you had with them. Reference that, I guess you were at a meeting and there was a book that you had published.
Okay.
And then they had told you you couldn't talk about the book or something. And I guess Laura had some concerns about, your interaction with them.
What does that have to do with the police?
So the reason why we're actually here is we're actually a part of the Behavioral Health Bureau with the Sheriff's Department. So it's a new bureau that they created regarding mental health status and mental health concerns that people have. So we just want to come and talk to you and see how everything's going, see if there's anything we can help with.
Quiet. The mental health. So how did you get a hold of it?
So the VFW
Yeah.
we received a letter from Laura
In Dana Point.
in Dana Point.
Is that why it's the sheriff instead of the police?
Correct, yeah. Because we control pretty much all of
So
South County.
VFW forwarded my wife's email to the sheriff's department.
Yes, they were concerned.
Who?
The VFW was. So
Who?
they... I don't know who I'm
Who
guessing
did you
that
get the letter from?
Mr. Hadagi was the letter
Ricky?
addressed to. I don't know his first name.
So Ricky forwarded you an email.
Yes, sir.
And what's the concern?
I guess just that Laura had some concerns with regards to the way you were treated by the VFW. So we came out. We want to come out and just talk to you and see how everything's going. See kind of if you need anything.
Just to check on your well-being, sir. If you need anything, any kind of resources or anything like that, that's all.
And you're plainclothes. I'm confused.
I'm not law enforcement, so it's a team with the behavioral.
But what are you?
Health
Or who are you?
I'm a therapist, so I work with Orange County Healthcare Agency.
Okay.
So
and
like
you
I
were
said-
referred to as a deputy, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Were you referred to as a deputy?
No, sir.
No.
Oh, okay.
We're deputies. He's a therapist that we ride with, a part of a psychiatric emergency response team.
What's the emergency?
There is no emergency. That's just what they call us. That's just.
But Ricky thought that there was an emergency, so he forwarded my wife's email.
No, there
to
was
the
no
sheriff.
emergency. No, sir.
No. I think
okay.
your wife alluded to she had concerns with how VFW handles, because they mention a lot about suicide awareness and things like that. And she
VFW
felt-
does.
Correct. And so she felt the way that they handled the situation was insensitive.
So why are you
Tangentially-
here instead of VFW?
I'm sorry?
So what are you doing here?
So again, tangentially, she's saying that the behavior, the way that you are a veteran, and so the way that they behave is insensitive to veterans, and she says this kind of thing potentially leads to suicidal whatever. So if someone makes statements like that they have a concern, then we will come out to be like, hey, is there a concern? Do you really think that this is a legitimate thing?
Okay.
Did this interaction really affect you in a way that, hey, emotionally I could use some support because I don't appreciate the way you handled, then we can link you up to services or things like that. So I think he had to react to the content of the letter and what she wrote in there. So if anyone uses this terminology, they can't just ignore that. They have to say
What terminology?
so if she's using the word suicide and suicidal
Oh,
ideation,
okay.
suicidal thoughts, then that's a concern. So if she's implying that, hey, my husband may be at risk and you guys are treating him poorly, then that would be a concern.
Okay.
And just so I know what I'm talking about, does anybody here have any military service?
No.
Do we personally? No, sir.
Okay. So, does anybody have a sense of how this might be kind of weird?
I understand, sir. I think us police officers showing up to anyone's house obviously is usually a concern for people. But we wanted to kind of follow up with you and see how you're doing. That's all it is.
Okay.
If you would like, we can get someone else down here who has military record and service.
No, I'm just curious because when you talk about sensitivity, I can't find it. I know she sent an email. So you're here to check on me
To
because
offer services if you need them.
Or
So
want them.
the letter is not clear on what your wife wrote, so I don't know what her intent
Okay.
was and
No,
the
I
verbiage
have it in
that
here.
she used. So I don't know what her intent was. But
Okay.
anytime anyone uses those words, they want to make sure that, hey, we're putting an effort out there, they're reaching out in the event that there is a need and that you would like some additional services, then we're more than happy to offer that to you.
okay. I don't know why it's not pulling up on my phone.
That's okay.
No
Yeah,
worries.
my wife sent an email because I asked a question and he didn't like my answer and was making all kind of weird comments about it was really weird.
Okay.
But the topic of sensitivity is interesting to me because it's weird that you're coming to a veteran's home. Nobody here has military service. You've got weapons, and that doesn't seem like it might be a problem.
That's
To
what we're
veterans?
That's what we're here to determine. So
Okay, no, it is a problem
Okay.
for the military spouse to write to a commander of the VFW in Dana Point. That commander forwarded an email to the police to send armed officers to that veteran's home making suggestions about their mental health.
So what they're sending is me. So they're sending a therapist. I don't travel without deputies because I work with them, and that's for my safety. Usually I'm doing 5150 assessments.
Do you
those
feel
sorts of-
unsafe?
Those sorts of things. So it's not a matter, I don't know you, so anytime I'm making contact with someone I don't know, I have my deputies with me. So they're not here to threaten, intimidate, or any of that. They're just here to support me to
Right,
make sure
the road
I'm-
to hell is paved with
safe.
intentions.
Sure.
Anybody else heard that one?
Sure.
So
So-
you're behind two people with firearms, and I'm supposed to what?
You're not-
Like what? How do these visits usually go? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, usually we're offering someone services and saying, like, hey, do you need any services or anything we can offer you? Your wife sort of obtusely alluded to the fact that, hey, maybe my husband might have a concern, maybe he's at some kind of risk or not. We're just here to determine whether that's true or not because her letter wasn't clear. So it never said.
What did Rick send?
I'm sorry?
What did Rick send? Because
He just
went
forwarded
through
that
Just
email
forwarded
to
the
that.
email.
with nothing.
Well, he just told us that there might be some concern, so if you would like to go talk to him. So that's why we're here.
I don't intend to talk to Rick because he's kind of a douchebag.
Okay, and that's why Rick forwarded the information on.
Is any of this public record?
No.
Did anybody look this up?
No.
So there's no record of making an armed visit to a veteran's home about mental health.
No.
Okay. I would love some services. I'd love to see a journalist.
A journalist?
Yeah.
Okay. I can help you with social work services, mental health services.
Okay. I didn't ask for that, and I don't think my wife did either.
Okay.
So did you want to try and to speak with a journalist? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Sure, yeah.
So my recommendation is we can't help with that. You can contact like the local news agency or even like the Orange County Register or something and then talk to them.
Okay. Should I tell them that there are police officers at my door?
Sure.
Ask about my mental health?
Yeah.
I'm welcome to. Yeah.
Let me make sure I can get this in. So, just to repeat, my wife sent an email to VFW Commander Rick Jareggi
Yes, sir.
commenting about how his comments were really inappropriate and borderline, well, I won't say borderline anything. And then Rick, the VFW commander at Dana Point, forwarded an email to law enforcement, which then sent armed officers and a therapist to my house.
Yes, sir. Like we told you, we're a part of the psychiatric emergency response team, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I psychiatrically cannot avoid the fact that you each have firearms and you're standing behind two armed people.
So that's just the way we're dressed, sir. It's just part of our
Our
duty,
uniform,
part of our
sure.
uniform.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't see how that might be a problem?
Not really, sir.
And again, none of you have military service.
No, sir.
So it might be lost on everybody but me, who spent 6 years in the Army, how ridiculous it is that another military person sent an email to law enforcement, right? Or was there some other department that Rick Jareggi sent it to?
No, sir. Law enforcement.
Okay, so he sent it to law enforcement, who then forwarded it to y'all, and y'all came out here.
Yes, sir. Just to check up on you to see kind of how you're doing, see if there's any additional resources or services that we can try and provide. You addressed that you wanted to speak with a journalist, and I told you that you can contact the OC Register or something
they'll
like
be
that.
interested now that Rick Jareggi sent armed officers to my house. Okay.
Okay. Did you need any assistance or resources from
No,
us?
that wasn't what I was asking. If I could pull up the email, I would, but I will for the register, I guess.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Sounds good. All right. Did you want us to give you a card with regards to any resources that if you have later down the road? Did you want us to give you a card with that information
Sure.
on it?
And can I FOIA the body cam footage so I can get longer video of all this?
These are all public records, sir.
Cool.
So you're more
If you
than
could indicate how I can get that body cam footage, that would be helpful.
sure. I'm just going to ask for the last four of the incident.
That's fine. How many vets do you think are in the law enforcement?
We have quite a
My name
few.
on the card, and then PERT is the acronym for the team that I work with. It was
Okay.
like-
How many emails like this do you get from Rick?
I don't know who Rick is.
Would that be public information?
No.
2690
If
Chiefs. I
any
get the last four of the
information
incident
that
number.
comes, so anything, like, from my understanding, when he's giving the information to the sheriff's department, he's giving it specifically to their behavioral
2692,
health
the last four of the incident
bureau.
number,
So it's
please.
not to like the officers; it's going directly to a behavioral health bureau because of the verbiage
10-4,
that was
thank you.
used.
Well, hold on. Let me get that email because I'm really confused how it could have been misconstrued.
He's on his computer right there.
Just be a minute. Okay. I don't know why it wasn't showing up.
So I have this card, sir. Santa Ana is the place to get that. That's the last four of the incident number. How you can get that information, okay?
Okay. There's suicide appears once in the email. Nope, sorry. And you received this from Rick. The
I did
email.
not receive this from Rick. I received it with the behavioral
Oh, okay.
health bureau.
I suspect no, wait. My wife saying, I read in your latest November newsletter a blurb commending the VA for looking further into veteran suicide. I suspect VFW is one of many communities aiming to address this suicide crisis. It's one thing to give it lip service in your newsletter, but when on the ground you are discouraging and shaming veterans like my spouse over a phone call. You are obliterating any semblance of, quote, safe space for veterans like him, further isolating, and I would even suggest contributing to the suicide crisis. Did you hear in anywhere that I was somehow at risk?
That's what I'm saying. It's not clear exactly what the intent of the statement is, so I believe that he was erring on the side of caution, going, hey, get down there and offer any services if any services are needed.
It seems more like harassment
So I
on
know-
Rick's part.
That I don't know. It sounds like you guys have a personal relationship, so that's...
No, we don't. That's why I'm trying to figure out how he thought that I was at risk based on those 3 appearances of that word.
Okay.
This is harassment.
Okay, I'm sorry
Should
you
I
feel
file
about
a
that, sir.
police report against Rick Jareggi for harassment? Because now all my neighbors are going to ask me, or not ask me, and just whisper about the veteran. So how do I file a police report against Rick Jareggi for harassment?
So there's really no harassment there, sir. He was just forwarding a possible concern, and that's all we're doing.
Did
We're
you
following
hear
up on that
in
concern.
what I read, do you hear any suggestion that I might be at risk?
So again, there was just 3 words mentioned of suicide, and that's why we're just following up to make sure that if anyone that you know of or
I know.
yourself,
I'll ask any 3 of you. Did any of you hear in those 3 mentions of suicide that I, my spouse's partner, was at risk for suicide?
That's what I'm saying. It's unclear what the intent was in that letter when she made the statement. So
Can
I
you
don't
help
know-
me understand how a reasonable person would have read that thought Logan is at risk for suicide such that he sends law enforcement to my house. This does seem to be harassment. Unless a reasonable person could have heard from that, my husband is going to kill himself. You're silent, so silence is assent. You do not, or I can reasonably infer that you don't, or you didn't hear anything that seems to suggest that I'm at risk for suicide. So it begs the question, why is Rick Jareggi calling law enforcement officers out for something that I just read to you?
There's nothing in the letter that said either way. That's why I'm saying that the letter was obtuse. So there was no direction saying, it never said directly, my husband's feeling suicidal.
So why did you come? Why didn't you tell Rick or ask Rick for more information?
That's what we come directly to.
Did you go to Rick?
She wrote a letter, she had a concern.
Did you go to Rick?
She's saying that, why would we go to Rick about that?
He's the one that sent you the letter.
Your wife wrote the letter. We're responding to what your wife wrote in the letter.
Right, so what did she write? What did she write that allowed or implied that I was at risk?
She implied that there was increased risk because of the poor behavior of the VA, that it was insensitive, and she mentioned a suicide risk. So our concern is, why are we mentioning this suicide risk for whatever this issue is?
So it's now like
And
the
if
new
someone
cancel
else-
culture, like a word can get police officers called to my house.
It's not a cancel culture issue, but it is.
Well, it's an analogy.
We want to make sure that we are being sensitive if someone's raising.
Okay, I'm telling you, you're not being sensitive.
Okay.
I don't know, and you all haven't told me how and what I just read to you inferred that I was at risk. So instead of, like, say, calling me or calling Rick to ask him where he thought that might have been, he didn't like what I had to say on a phone call. Okay. So he sent an email to law enforcement. That is harassment.
Sir, he just forwarded the email that your wife sent over, and that was it.
So who's at fault? Because at some point you actually have to deal with the content of the letter. Is that correct, yes or no?
That's why we're here.
And maybe that's a no. Is that a yes or a no?
And that's why we're here, sir.
The content of the letter is
So
absolutely why we're
no intellectual activity at all. It's just there's a letter that has 7 characters in it. We're going to go to his house with 2 armed officers.
It's a letter that implies
Do you understand? Do you hear how ridiculous that is? Do you hear how incredibly harassing that comes off as?
I hear that you feel harassed, that you feel it's very difficult. That I definitely hear. We hear that, and it's unfortunate, and we take that in, and we can definitely bear that in mind in the future, that you're saying, hey, this was really insensitive, I'm a veteran, if you guys have never been in this situation before, maybe there's things that you can consider, and we'll definitely consider that going forward, that, hey, the gentleman's a veteran, maybe there's some concerns that we need to take into account. Our, like you said, how do these things usually go? Usually we just say, hey, this is my name, here's a card, here's some resources if you need them, and people generally are fairly appreciative that, hey, someone's at least looking out for me and concerned about my behavior. It sounds like there's some additional concerns that you have with this gentleman, and there's some other stuff going on in the background.
If someone calls 911 and hangs up and does it repeatedly, is there a crime?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
there is.
What's the crime?
It's 653, Mike.
What's that?
Misuse of 911.
Misuse.
Yes, sir.
So, again, he's called 911. He's instituted an action from law enforcement.
he did not.
Nobody
He emailed.
whatever it was. It was his action, and then no consideration between that forwarded email to showing up at my door armed.
Okay. So us being here is probably not helping the situation anymore. Like I
Yeah, it
said,
probably
this is
could have.
stressful for us.
That could have been a conclusion that could have been drawn had someone asked, say, a veteran.
So you have our card now. So you have access to those services in the event that you did need those services.
Yeah, and
Your
I
wife
do
has
not
that
intend to
card.
use them because of how you've handled it so far.
Okay.
Okay.
If you had a concern, or if that letter actually triggered a concern, that should have been, something should have happened between some schmuck forwarding an email and showing up at someone's house with your weapons, right?
All right. So now
Right.
you're comfortable. Would you like us to leave?
Yeah, you shouldn't have come in the first place. You should have asked Rick.
All right.
All right, sir.
Sounds good.
Well, then you have a good rest
Have
of
a
your
good
day,
day,
okay?
sir. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe next time send some veterans who might know better.
Sounds good, sir. You enjoy the rest of your day. Download contact.